So I'm going to be reading my book, No Limb Can Bear, for a little while. My throat's been a bit sore, but I'm going to see what I can do. And if you enjoy this book, check out the link in the description. There should be a link to the Amazon page where you can buy it, or you can buy the Kindle version, which is quite a bit cheaper, and also actually ends up giving me more money. So either or, I'm happy with both. And if you just want to listen, just listen. That's cool too. All right, so Chappie and the Shack. The dim light flitting by the holes in Grady's shack had faded from gray to gloom. The threatening storm had swallowed the last of the sun's weak luminescence. A wind laced with malice and hemmed with destruction had torn the roof off an hour ago. The walls rattled. The roof shook. Teeth of ice forced their way through the empty frame and gnawed at his nose and cheeks. Grady bellowed down the stairs. His voice bounced off the dripping mud walls, echoed past the guttering torches, tumbled under the trickling waterfalls, and vanished into the place where light dared not go. His lordship has a request to make ye, sir. A long, howling breath of air, both loud and noisome, answered Grady's call. He staggered, covering both his nose and his one good ear. The other ear heard the words. They echoed inside his skull, bouncing off one another in a fractured harmony. Grady only plucked 7 words from the chorus, but each was more terrible than the storm. Lacaneser. Answer, forgotten kingdom. Weep, dead. Had the rats at Grady's feet stood and spoken in unison, he would not have been half as disturbed. Had their brown teeth and gaping jaws clattered to the floor in a moldering rain, he might have been 2/3 as disturbed, 3/4 on a bad day. And today was a bad day. But the sound was worse. It drifted through his nostrils and thick, ruddy ears, perforating his being with despair. It was like watching a fresh pint soak the earth at the base of a cracked and weeping mug. It was the sound of wilted flowers. It was the scent of cloying rain. Grady grasped for a weapon to defend himself from the chthonic echoes. All he found was his spear. A stick, tipped in iron, held no sway over the eldritch. Grady's legs trembled. His knees quivered. His nose wobbled. He didn't even know what chthonic meant. Any word with that many consonants couldn't be good. Who are ye? Grady whispered. The voice from a world which did not exist, a world separate from his safe and sensible one, sighed its way up to unwelcoming ears. Torches fluttered unevenly, illogically, marking the voice's passage. Some flames fluttered as they stepped aside. Others flared, high and green, leaving black stains on the ceiling. The rest guttered violently and were extinguished. One left behind to remember. Grady considered running. He was much better at running than fighting. He'd be past the border and 2 doms over before the swiftest demons of fear made it halfway up that ridiculous stair. There were only 5 other guards in his lord's tiny domain. They'd be too busy to look for him. He'd be safe. There was nothing wrong with wanting to be safe, Grady reasoned. What good would he be against the unknown anyway? Last time he had to fight was when he had earned his badge. That same badge had crumbled to rust years ago. Too many uneventful nights spent stood in the rain. Grady had liked those nights. They were peaceful. Running. Grady had experience with running. Running after Lord Glove. Running from post to post. Running to fetch Grovekeeper Rezel to arrange a birth or a funeral. Running to carry a basket of goods to old woman Eliza, who couldn't leave the house anymore. Running to the pub for drinks with Matt. Running home from the pub to see his children, Matt and Sally. Fine. I'll stay. Grady eased his grip on the spear. I'll stay for to children, and for to drinks. Matt owes me. And for to drinks Matt owes me, rather. I painted him as more heroic than he actually is. He looked down at his feet. They'd carried him several steps backward out of the shack. Grady squared his shoulders and marched them to the precipice of the stairs. I'll even stay for to one I ho, Matt. His voice rose. You hear me? You're supposed to remembrance something? What are you remembrancing, eh? A great gale rumbled up the earthen steps, shaking the ground beneath his feet. Kneeser, bring, teach, lordship, 7 weeks. Hurry. Grady staggered back from the buffeting waves of putrefaction. There was a crack as a rat's skull broke free of its mound and flew at Grady's head. He ducked with a yelp and ran for the door. Another skull clipped his ear. Smoke and scattered screams pursued him. At this point, his spear was an impediment, nothing more. He abandoned it, picking up speed. A ponderous creek separated the shack from the rest of the dom. It was shallow, as creeks go, but it still managed to gape. Grady, who had never been a jumper, hurled himself at the opposite edge. 1 foot made it. The other slipped into freezing water. Grady toppled forward, banging his knee on the overgrown embankment. He crawled to his feet, breathing hard. A soft squelch began to accompany his panting. Above, the clouds had swirled to form a great gray eye. The eye began to weep cold and bitter tears. They splashed down on Grady, plastering his hair to his forehead and cheeks, blinding him. He wiped it free with a grassy hand, leaving strands of it in his hair and a streak of mud across his nose. The shack continued to wail behind him. The trees joined in on the moaning, adding their own voices to the storm. If that wind held its own secret sighs, Grady did not hear them, did not listen, and did not care. Ahead, he could see the hall of his lord. The warm red light of its door was unwavering in the rain. Lord Glove would know what to do. He always did. Chapter 2, in which Lord Glove doesn't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Lord Glove handed Grady another towel. You've come to me in the middle of the night with summons from an elderish being and a rat skull hanging from your ear. It is most unusual. Lord Glove stared at the broken spear on his mantelpiece. It was an old problem, one to which he'd never found the solution. Rebecca told me to never again enter her home uninvited. Our relationship is strained. Grady finished wiping at his face and dropped the towel to the floor. That's the way of love, me lord. One day you're picking flowers into field and making to highs at each other and saying you were wishing you was married. Then all of a sudden you're lonelier than you've ever been in your life, and the children are too afraid to even talk, and every penny you've ever earned is gone, and every day you come home and learn it's not enough, and you're a failure, and you should have never married you in the first place. The next thing you know, she's bit the horses off, and you're leaving the treeless Eridan to rot into self-same field. And even then you can't find peace, because the voice won't stop, and no matter what you do, you still feel like a failure. That's love. That's what they write about in their songs. That's the beautiful life me father promised me. Grady shook his fist, spraying water everywhere. Lord Glove handed him another towel. Begging your pardon, me lord. Lord Glove waved away the apology. It is best not to dwell on such things. Your outburst is already forgotten. Thank ye, me lord. Grady turned away and made a show of warming himself at the hearth. Lord Glove mirrored the motion, staring at the flames. Lord Glove was careful not to meet the old guard's eyes, and he suspected Grady was doing the same. For now, Lord Glove was content to listen to the crackling of the fire. Grady was the first to speak. He could be in danger, me lord. Lord Glove's eyes flickered to the spear. Yes. Ye should be going, Ten, I reckon. I promised. He paused. Was that honor speaking, or pride? Half a century was a long time to hold a grudge. It was high time he made amends with Rebecca. She was growing old. And if she was not in danger, if she never forgave him, so be it. I will bear both her scorn and her hatred if it means keeping her safe. Lord Glove tugged on his coat and headed for the door. Grady, you have charge of the house. Ring for the guard. I want them to be at the armory, ready for combat in 10 minutes. We'll be leaving at once. Sir? Lord Glove paused in the entryway. The squall had lessened to a steady drumming of rain. It's about time, sir. Grady wrung out his lamellar armor and hung it over the fire irons. Time for one of us to make amends, that is. The descent into the Kineser's lair. I can't see! Trent, the light's gone. Nah. Look, Turnpike, it's right over there. Behind those cobwebs or whatever they are. Where's his lordship? I'm going to run. Treacle's scream faded into the distance. A loud splash followed a minute later. That's why you never run to the Kineser's abode, me lads. Stairs are as like to be above you as below you. Slippier than a pig covered in eels. Biden slapped his knee. Bidden, sorry. Ha! Now there's an expression. Remind me to tell you the boys the story sometime. Here? No, there, see? Poke about with your spear a bit. There was a squelch, a moment's resistance, and then something damp and probably contagious fell from the ceiling. By the Black Banner, it's on my face! That'd be a splorcher. It's what we used to call them back in the day, anyway. It's quivering. Yep, they do that. You cleared the torch, at least. I reckon we should hurry and see if Treacle is all right. You don't want to hurry on these stairs, lads. Lord Glove's the only one crazy enough to make it. The old dog's got the hooves of a goat and fingers covered in spiders. The splorcher's crawling towards my eyes. Yep, they do that too. What do I do? You get a splorcher in your eye, typically. Half an hour later, 2 splorchers, and a dire spore later, the 3 men discovered something they couldn't walk around, poke with a spear, or even a... We seem to have lost it. Intake that. $37. 2. 38. $38. If I am live right now, I apologize. I'm not entirely sure what's going on. 42. Go to sleep. It's just wake up. Wake up. $46. 39. 35.